He enters that courtroom like he's entering a boardroom he already owns. The checkbook slides onto the podium with confidence, a subtle threat wrapped in wealth. "Everything has a price," he whispers, believing his fortune makes him untouchable. Judge Judy's response is silence, not hesitation, not surprise, the cold, cutting stare of someone who's seen 1,000 men like him and broken everyone. What happens next is surgical. She doesn't argue. She doesn't raise her voice. She dismantles him. Every manipulation exposed, every lie dragged into the light on live television. By the time her verdict lands, this millionaire isn't just defeated, he's exposed. His money, his power, his privilege, all worthless against real justice. And just when he thinks it's over, Judge Judy pauses, looks straight at him, and asks one final question, the one that explains how he made his fortune, and why this case was never really about money. But before we get into it, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and hit subscribe for more shocking courtroom moments. He steps into the courtroom like he is arriving at a boardroom he already owns. The air shifts, not because of his presence, but because of the arrogance he carries like cologne. Even Judge Judy looks up, sensing trouble before a word is spoken. The door closes behind him with a soft thud, but everything about the man is loud. Evan Marston, millionaire, investor. A man who speaks in numbers, not truths. His suit gleams under the fluorescent lights, tailored so sharply it seems to cut the air as he moves. The camera would catch it first, how his smile is confident, calculated, and deeply hollow. He adjusts his cuffs with casual precision, diamond glints catching the eye of half the room. He walks past the audience without seeing them, past the plaintiff without acknowledging him, and stops at the podium like it belongs to him. He lowers a checkbook on it, slow, deliberate, a gesture soaked in entitlement. Judge Judy watches with no expression at all, not annoyance, not surprise. Just that cold, measured stare that has ended careers, lies, and egos far bigger than his. Evan senses her silence, but misreads it. He thinks it is curiosity, maybe respect. It is neither. Across from him, the plaintiff stands small, shoulders tight, hands clasped as though holding himself together is its own battle. A contractor whose clothes are clean but worn, whose eyes carry the kind of exhaustion that does not come from work alone. When Evan shifts, the contractor flinches. It is subtle, but Judy sees it. She always sees it. "Your Honor," Evan begins, voice smooth as a polished stone. "This is a simple misunderstanding, a small matter. I am here to resolve it quickly." His confidence is the kind that fills the room and suffocates everyone else in it. He thinks charm is currency. He thinks tone is strategy. He thinks money is oxygen. Judy tilts her head, studying him the way a surgeon might examine a tumor, calculating, unemotional. "Mr. Marston," she says calmly, "why do you assume this is small?" That single question deflates the room. Evan's smile stiffens for a fraction of a second, almost invisible, but not to her. He launches into his explanation. Project delays, missing materials, a contractor he describes as disorganized and inexperienced. He speaks over the plaintiff 3 times in 30 seconds. Each interruption is sharper than the last. Judy's eyes narrow, not in anger but in recognition. She has seen this performance before. Confidence weaponized to conceal something larger, something darker. She lifts a document from her desk, a single sheet, thin, ordinary, yet Evan's gaze catches on it with a flicker of unease. "Mr. Marston," she says softly, "is this how it began?" The courtroom stills. Evan swallows. For the first time, the millionaire looks unsure. Judy taps the paper once. "Because according to this, your story is already falling apart." His confidence does not falter when she questions him. If anything, it grows, like he believes he is sculpting the truth with every word. Evan Marston leans forward, elbows resting lightly on the podium, wearing a smile that belongs on a billboard selling success. He believes he is leading this conversation, the way he leads board meetings, negotiations, and anyone too intimidated to challenge him. To him, Judge Judy is simply another audience, one he plans to impress. The issue, he says smoothly, is the contractor's incompetence. I gave him clear instructions. He overpromised and underdelivered. I was left to fix his mistakes. He gestures with rehearsed ease, shaping the air with his hands like he is conducting a symphony of excuses. Every motion is a performance designed to dominate the narrative. The plaintiff tries to speak. Evan cuts him off again, and again, and again. Each interruption lands like a slap, a reminder of the imbalance between a millionaire who has always been heard and a contractor who has spent his life fighting to be noticed. Judy's eyes sharpen. The interruptions tell her more than his words ever could. "Mr. Marston," she says, voice calm but edged with steel, "you will let him finish." He laughs softly, the kind of laugh that pretends to be polite but drips with superiority. "Of course, Your Honor. I simply want to clarify the facts." But the moment the plaintiff lifts his head to speak, Evan inhales, ready to launch himself back into the center of the conversation. Judy raises a hand, small, precise, powerful. Evan freezes, and the courtroom exhales. "Go ahead," she tells the plaintiff. The contractor's voice is quiet, but steady. "I completed the work exactly as agreed, but when I asked for payment, Mr. Marston kept finding reasons to delay. He said he'd pay when his investors approved it. Then he told me he expected a discount because he could bring me business." Evan scoffs so loudly it echoes off the wood paneling. "That is a complete mischaracterization," he snaps. "I was mentoring you. You misunderstood my generosity." Judy watches him, silent again, but not passive. Silent like a fuse being lit. She reaches for the document she tapped in Section 1. The paper slides forward across her desk with the soft whisper of a blade against stone. "Mr. Marston," she says quietly, "this document contradicts almost everything you have just said." Evan's breath catches, not visibly, not dramatically, but enough that the tension tightens like thread pulled too far. "What document is that?" he asks, trying to keep his tone neutral. Judy doesn't answer. Instead, she studies him. The room feels colder now, as though truth itself has leaned in closer. Her silence unnerves him. His fingers tap the podium once, an unconscious tell. Control beginning to slip. Finally, she sets the paper upright. It is an invoice, signed, dated, stamped, paid in full. Judy meets his eyes. "If you paid him in full, Mr. Marston, why are we here?" His smile does not disappear, just flickers, but flickers are where truth begins. And Judge Judy notices everyone. Evan stares at the invoice as if the ink might rearrange itself into a more convenient story. The bold stamp reading "paid in full" glows under the courtroom lights, an accusation more honest than any testimony. He adjusts his tie, a small tug that pretends to be casual but feels like a man loosening a noose he tied himself. "That invoice," Evan says slowly, "was issued prematurely. I disputed the quality later. He knew that." Judy's brow lifts just enough to register disbelief. "You disputed it," she repeats. "After paying it?" The audience shifts, whispering, sensing the first instability in his polished narrative. Even the clerk pauses typing for a moment, fingers hovering above the keys like they are waiting for the truth to settle. Evan clears his throat. "Your Honor, when you manage as many projects as I do, things get complicated. Deadlines change. Expectations evolve. I tried to give him an opportunity to correct the issues, and he refused." "That is not true," the plaintiff says quietly. The room stills. There is something new in the contractor's voice. Not fear this time, but steadiness. Maybe courage. Maybe exhaustion that finally found its edge. Judy turns to him. "Explain." He nods, inhaling deeply. Mr. Marston approved every phase. He even praised the work. But when it came time to pay the last installment, the bulk of it, he started redirecting me. Meetings he forgot, calls he avoided, and then he said. The contractor hesitates, eyes lowering to the papers in his hands. Evan rolls his eyes, but Judy silences him with a single raised finger. "Finish," she says. The contractor lifts his gaze. He said payment was flexible if I wanted access to his network, that I could either take a discount or take the risk of upsetting someone with influence. A shockwave of murmurs ripples across the room. Judy's expression does not change, but the air around her sharpens. She looks at Evan the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray, seeing fractures that the patient insists are not there. Evan exhales through a tight smile. That is absurd. I was mentoring him. It is common in my field to offer guidance in exchange for... Guidance? Judy interrupts. Or leverage. He freezes. The question slices through his narrative with surgical precision, exposing raw truth beneath rehearsed charm. His jaw tightens, his hands flatten against the podium, knuckles paling. "Your Honor," he says softly, "you're misunderstanding." "No," she replies, equally soft. "I am listening." The silence that follows is heavy, honest, uncomfortable. The contractor swallows hard. "There was one more thing," he said, "the kind of thing that made me realize I could lose everything if I pushed back." Evan shakes his head. This is nonsense. But Judy is watching the plaintiff now, eyes steady, voice calm. "What exactly did he say to you that day?" The room leans in. Even the millionaire stops breathing. The contractor exhales shakily. "He told me I should remember who has the power." The truth does not come from what the plaintiff says. It comes from how Evan reacts, and his reaction is the first thing in this case that feels real. The words "remember who has the power" hang in the air like smoke, thin, toxic, impossible to ignore. The contractor stands frozen after saying them, his breath shallow, as though speaking the sentence allowed a buried fear to surface. The courtroom absorbs it in a single collective inhale. Evan cannot help himself. His head snaps toward the contractor with a flare of indignation too sharp to mask. "I never said that," he insists, the denial rushing out too fast, too defensive. "You're twisting my words because you mishandled the job and now you need someone to blame." But Judge Judy hears something else entirely. Not the denial, but the panic laced beneath it. Panic has a rhythm, a tremor, and Evan just revealed he knows exactly what he is being accused of. She folds her hands, voice low and deliberate. "Mr. Marston, no one said you used those words. He said you implied that sentiment." Evan blinks, just once, but it is a blink of recognition, not confusion. Judy sees it. Everyone sees it. The plaintiff continues, voice wavering. "Every meeting, every message, it felt like he was reminding me that I was replaceable, that he could make one call and shut down my business." Evan scoffs, but it is weaker this time, performative rather than powerful. The performance is slipping. "Your Honor, this is absurd," he repeats, but the echo lacks conviction now. He is exaggerating for sympathy. Judy leans back, studying him with careful, quiet intensity. "Is he?" Silence. Evan lifts his chin, attempting to reclaim the composure he walked in with. "I run a successful company. I mentor young contractors. If he interpreted my advice as a threat, that is his insecurity, not my intention." "And yet," Judy says, tapping the desk once, "you reacted very strongly a moment ago, before I asked for clarification." He stiffens. The plaintiff looks at her gratefully, as though someone finally sees the truth he has lived with. Judy reaches to her right and lifts a slim folder, plain manila, unremarkable, but somehow heavier than anything else in the room. Evan's posture tightens as she places it on the bench. "Mr. Marston," she says, her tone shifting, becoming surgical. "Your statements so far conflict with evidence submitted to this court." His jaw clenches. "What evidence?" She opens the folder with slow, deliberate care. The rustle of paper is soft, but feels deafening in the thickened air. Inside is a printed transcript, time-stamped, dated, unmistakably precise. "You forgot about this," she says calmly, sliding the document toward him. "Did you not?" Evan's eyes widen before he can stop them. His mask fractures. The courtroom leans forward. Judy's voice drops to a controlled whisper, every syllable a scalpel. "This is the recording of your last conversation with the plaintiff." She taps the transcript. "And we are going to listen to it, every second." The room does not breathe when she presses play. Even Evan stands still. Too still for a man so desperate to appear unbothered. A soft click echoes through the courtroom as Judge Judy sets the small speaker on the bench. She presses the button with the same calm precision a surgeon uses before making the first incision. The air thickens, heavy with anticipation, dread, and the undeniable scent of truth drawing near. The recording begins with static, brief, crackling, innocent. Then his voice enters the room. Evan's voice, not the polished one he performs with in court. Not the controlled public-facing baritone built for negotiation and dominance. This voice is sharper, harder, coated in the arrogance of someone who believes the world bends when he speaks. If you want more work from me, the recording begins, you need to be flexible. I do not reward people who make my life harder. A ripple moves through the courtroom. The plaintiff's shoulders tense. Evan's eyes narrow, though he tries to pretend the words are unfamiliar. Judge Judy does not look at him. She watches the speaker. The recording continues. You keep asking about payment like you're entitled to it. Let me explain something. In my world, loyalty is worth more than invoices. Evan steps forward. Your Honor, this is out of context. Be quiet, she replies without raising her voice. The room obeys before Evan does. Static again, then more words, worse ones. If you want to grow, you work with me on my terms. You take a discount now, and I make sure you eat later. That is how business works. The plaintiff flinches. The audience exhales in disbelief. Evan finally stops pretending he isn't nervous. His hands slip behind his back, fingers interlaced so tightly the knuckles blanch. Judge Judy pauses the recording. Her eyes shift to Evan with quiet, devastating clarity. This is how you mentor people? He swallows. It is negotiation, standard practice. Not in my courtroom. The words hit harder than a gavel. She presses play again. The final segment cuts deeper. You can go to court if you want, but you won't win. I know people. They pick up the phone when I call. Do you understand me? A collective gasp breaks free. Even the bailiff shifts slightly, an instinctive response to hearing a threat disguised as business. Evan's breathing changes, shorter, faster, like he is running out of space inside himself. Judge Judy clicks the button, stopping the recording mid-sentence. The silence that follows is suffocating, heavy, exposing. Mr. Marston, she says, voice low. Do you deny that is your voice? He hesitates, searching for any lifeline, any lie that might survive the weight of that audio. It sounds like me, he manages, but the tone. No, she interrupts. It does not sound like you. It is you. His expression fractures in real time. She turns to the plaintiff. The call ends abruptly. Why? The contractor hesitates, eyes shadowed by something unspoken. Before he can answer, Judy leans forward. There is more to that call, is there not? She locks eyes with the plaintiff. Tell this court what he said right before you hung up. For the first time, Evan hesitates. Not long, not dramatically, just enough for the truth to slip a foot into the doorway he has been trying to hold shut. Judge Judy's question lingers in the room like a held breath. What did he say right before you hung up? The plaintiff looks down at his hands, fingers trembling at the memory. Evan stiffens, sensing the danger in silence. It is always the quiet moments that betray the loudest lies. I did not say anything inappropriate, Evan blurts out before the contractor can answer. He misunderstood my tone. You know how recordings can sound, cold, clipped. That is all this is. But his voice betrays him. It is no longer the controlled baritone he walked in with. It is tight, defensive, barely held together by ego and fear. Judy lifts one eyebrow, a gesture softer than a whisper, but sharper than a blade. I was not speaking to you, Mr. Marston. The plaintiff lifts his head slowly. The courtroom watches with the stillness of people who know they are witnessing the moment everything changes. He said, the plaintiff swallows, voice unsteady but sincere. He said I should be careful, that people who pressure him tend to disappear from opportunities. A wave of murmurs rolls across the audience. Judy's eyes narrow, not in outrage, but in recognition. She has heard threats dressed as business before. She knows what intimidation sounds like when it wears a suit. Evan shakes his head, turning toward her with desperate urgency. Your Honor, that is absolutely false. I would never— Mr. Marston, her voice slices through his protest like cold steel. In my courtroom, you do not speak over someone who is explaining the harm you caused. The reprimand lands like the first domino. Evan's mouth snaps shut. His shoulders tighten. His composure, so polished in Section 1, is now dented, patched, wobbling under scrutiny. The plaintiff continues, gathering strength from her protection. I hung up because I was scared, not of losing money, but of losing my business. Everything I built depends on reputation, and he knew that. Judy looks at Evan again. This time, she does not blink. Your voice on that recording does not sound like a mentor, she says. It sounds like a man who enjoys reminding others how small he believes they are. A flush creeps up Evan's neck. Anger, embarrassment. Both look the same when pride begins to fracture. The bailiff shifts slightly, sensing the rising emotional temperature. Even the clerks pause, pens hovering, waiting for what comes next. Judy turns to the contractor. Did he threaten legal action? No, the plaintiff replies. He threatened influence. The last domino tips. Judy leans forward, elbows on the bench, her expression a blend of precision and quiet authority. Mr. Marston, your pattern of behavior is becoming painfully clear. Evan opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. Nothing. Silence, real, unmasked, exposing, settles around him. She lets that silence do its work. Then, softly but decisively, she asks, Is this how you conduct all your business, Mr. Marston? His throat moves, but no answer forms. Judy turns to her clerk. Bring me his financial disclosures. I want to see where this pattern leads. If you were sitting in that courtroom, what would you do? Stay silent or speak up? His confidence does not just crack this time, it splinters. Ego is loud when it rises, but it is louder when it begins to fall. The clerk sets a stack of documents on the bench, each page a quiet indictment, numbers, transfers, discrepancies that do not match the polished narrative Evan has been performing since he walked in. Judge Judy flips through the first few pages, her eyes narrowing with each turn. She does not speak. She does not need to. The room feels her judgment forming like a storm tightening above the horizon. Evan tries to stand taller, shoulders back, chin lifted, but the posture feels forced now, like armor strapped onto someone already bleeding beneath it. His voice, when it returns, is too sharp. These documents do not prove anything, he says. They are taken out of context. Everything is out of context when the context keeps changing, Judy replies, still scanning the numbers. Which yours does, repeatedly. The plaintiff watches, hands folded tightly, the memory of months of stress etched across his face. There is no triumph in his expression, only the fragile relief of someone finally being believed. Evan cannot stand the silence pressing against him. He steps forward, voice rising with a brittle edge. Your Honor, I am a respected businessman. I have built my reputation over decades. I do not appreciate being treated like a criminal because this man cannot manage his own affairs. Judy lifts her eyes, slowly, the kind of slow that makes the room lean in. No one accused you of being a criminal, she says. But you are behaving like someone who knows he is in the wrong. The remark hits him harder than a shout. His jaw flexes, his fingers curl around the podium so tightly the tendons show. He fires back, louder now. I came here to resolve a simple dispute, not to have my entire reputation dragged through the mud because he is upset about a payment schedule. The plaintiff's head jerks up. A payment schedule? You threatened to ruin me if I kept asking for what you owed. Evan's face reddens. I never threatened— Yes, Judy interrupts. You did. Her voice is calm, controlled, deadly precise. She sets the papers down and folds her hands. Every time this plaintiff speaks, you interrupt. Every time you explain yourself, your story shifts. Your financial disclosures show patterns that suggest more than one contractor has been treated this way. And the recording, your own words, speaks for itself. Evan opens his mouth, but nothing coherent forms. Anger wars with fear behind his eyes. His performance, once so smooth, now trembles with desperation. "Mr. Marston," Judy continues, "you are not on trial. Your behavior is." The courtroom absorbs the distinction like a blade slipping under skin. She leans in just slightly. "And so far, your behavior is telling the truth more clearly than your testimony ever has." Evan's shoulders slump an inch, maybe less, but the fall is visible. The ego that filled the room is shrinking. He feels the shift. Everyone feels it. Judy reaches for a sealed envelope. "Let us see if your former assistant's statement tells the same story." Evan straightens his suit. Small motion, sharp fabric, forced confidence. Men like him believe posture can hide panic, but panic has a way of bleeding through the seams. Judge Judy holds the sealed envelope the way a surgeon holds a scalpel, steady, deliberate, utterly unafraid of what truth might cut open. The room becomes silent enough to hear the faint hum of the overhead lights. Even the bailiff shifts his weight, sensing the energy change. "Your assistant submitted this voluntarily," she says, breaking the seal with one clean motion. She felt it was important. Evan's composure falters, just a flicker, a tightening of his jaw, a half-second too long before he inhales. But Judy sees all of it. "My assistant is disgruntled," he says quickly. "She was terminated. Anything she sent is retaliation." Judy does not even look up. "You terminated her last month?" "Yes. This envelope was sent 6 months ago." The color drains from his face. The courtroom gasps softly, the way an audience reacts when the plot twist they feared suddenly becomes real. Judy pulls out a stack of printed emails, clean formatting, clear timestamps, nothing chaotic enough to be fabricated. She reads the first silently, and her expression shifts from curiosity to something colder, more certain. She looks at Evan. "Do you know what she wrote?" He swallows. "People exaggerate. Assistants misunderstand instructions." "She did not misunderstand these." Judy hands the first page to the bailiff, who delivers it to the plaintiff. Evan watches it move across the room like it is a ticking clock counting down to something he cannot stop. The plaintiff reads, and his eyes widen with the slow, painful recognition of a truth he already suspected. "Your former assistant," Judy says, "describes a pattern: contractors pressured, invoices delayed strategically, discounts demanded under the guise of future opportunities. And a specific note about you calling them," she glances at the paper, "expendable." "That is taken completely out of context," Evan snaps, voice rising too fast, too hot. "Those were internal discussions. My team was evaluating. You described people whose livelihoods depended on you as expendable," she repeats. Evan's breath stutters. "That is not illegal." "No," Judy says softly, "but it is revealing." The room tightens around him. His wealth has always been his shield, his narrative, his leverage, his explanation for every door that opened. But right now, that wealth looks small, shrinking, helpless. She lifts the final page, one with a highlighted sentence. "Your assistant wrote," Judy reads slowly. "He brags that money solves everything. He genuinely believes rules do not apply to him." Evan's face flushes a deep, burning red. A single bead of sweat forms near his temple. Judge Judy sets the paper down. "Do you deny that attitude, Mr. Marston?" Silence. He cannot answer without exposing himself. He cannot deny without lying. He cannot stay silent without proving her point. Judy tilts her head. "Convenient," she repeats softly, as though tasting the word. "Meaning vulnerable." He nods once. Barely. A gesture so small it might have gone unnoticed, if not for the weight it carries. The courtroom shifts. Sympathetic glances move toward the plaintiff. Evan doesn't look at him. He doesn't look at anyone. He looks like someone finally confronting the reflection he has successfully avoided for years. Judy sets her pen down gently. "Mr. Marston, I want to understand something. You have wealth, connections, influence. You could hire any contractor in this entire state. So why choose someone you believed couldn't fight back?" Evan swallows, throat bobbing visibly. His voice is thinner now, stripped of its earlier lacquer. Because people like him don't challenge me, they don't push back. But he did, Judy says, and that, more than anything, seems to pierce him. Evan's hand rises to his forehead, fingers pressing into his temple as though trying to hold himself together. His veneer, polish, confidence, ego, peels back, revealing the unsteady man beneath. A man who spent years engineering control, yet stands here utterly powerless. The plaintiff watches him, not with anger, not with triumph, but with a quiet ache born from months of sleepless nights, financial strain, and the constant fear of losing everything he built. Evan's voice cracks. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think he would matter. The plaintiff flinches at that. The room recoils. Judge Judy inhales, deeply, slowly, as though steadying herself against the ugliness of the revelation. Every person matters in this courtroom, she says. Whether you choose to see their value or not. Evan's eyes shine, not with tears, but with the disorientation of a man realizing the rules he built his life around do not function here. Money cannot shield him. Reputation cannot charm him out of this. Influence cannot twist the narrative back into his control. For the first time he looks human. Not heroic, not villainous. Just human, small, and finally confronted with the damage he has caused. Judy folds her hands. We're not finished. Her gaze sharpens. Before I determine consequences, the court must understand the full impact of your actions, and we're going to hear it from him. The courtroom feels smaller now, as if truth has drawn the walls inward. Not suffocating, clarifying. A space where excuses can no longer breathe, only honesty can. Judge Judy turns her attention from Evan to the plaintiff. The shift is subtle, but the energy in the room changes instantly, a refocusing, a redirection of gravity. For the first time all day, the plaintiff is not the shadow in Evan's story. He is the center of it. Tell me, she says gently, what did his actions cost you? The plaintiff's hands tighten together. He has carried this weight so long it seems foreign to unpack it now, in front of cameras, strangers, and the man who caused it. He inhales, steadying himself. It cost me sleep, he begins softly. Peace. Confidence. His voice catches on the last word, not from weakness, from memory. Evan stares at him, blinking slowly, as though he's hearing the consequences of his actions for the first time. I lost clients, the plaintiff continues. Rumors spread when Mr. Marston delayed payment. People assumed I'd done something wrong. I had to choose which bills got paid and which didn't. My wife, she thought the business was failing. I couldn't tell her I was afraid of one man. Silence tightens around the admissions like a protective embrace. Even the gallery seems to lean in, not hungry for drama but humbled by vulnerability. Judge Judy nods, her expression soft but unyielding. And professionally? I turned down work, he says. I was scared I'd end up in another situation like this. I almost closed my company. This wasn't just late payment. It was a shadow over everything I worked for. Judy shifts her gaze to Evan, who stands frozen, jaw slack, eyes flickering with a dawning awareness that feels like punishment in itself. This, she says firmly, is what power without accountability looks like. Evan opens his mouth. No words come out. The plaintiff lowers his eyes, his voice cracking in the quietest confession yet. I started doubting myself. I thought, maybe I really wasn't good enough. Maybe I deserved how he treated me. That breaks something in the room. Evan's breathing quickens. His wrongdoing is no longer an abstract criticism. It has a face, a voice, a cost. And that cost is not measured in dollars. Judy's voice softens. You didn't deserve any of it. The plaintiff exhales as if releasing a weight he has carried for months, maybe years. A weight named fear. A weight named silence. A weight named Evan Marston. She turns back to Evan. Do you hear him? He nods, barely managing the motion. Good, she says, because this is what justice is about. Not revenge, not humiliation. Accountability, recognition, consequence. Evan's shoulders slump further. The collapse continues. The plaintiff glances toward him, not with anger now, but with something deeper, almost sorrowful, because even victims sometimes grieve the humanity of the people who hurt them. Judge Judy folds her hands. Her voice lowers to a solemn timbre. Justice is not only what the law demands, it's what the truth asks of us. And the truth here? It's costly. A heavy silence settles, reverent and unbroken. Then she straightens. We're nearly done. But before I issue judgment, Mr. Marston, there is one final question you will answer. For the first time since he entered this courtroom, Evan lifts his eyes without defiance, not to argue, not to charm, but because something in him senses the question coming and fears it. Judge Judy sits perfectly still, hands folded, eyes sharp as glass. The weight of everything said, everything revealed, settles into the room like dust after a collapse. She watches Evan with the kind of scrutiny that sees past posture, past wealth, past rehearsed confidence. She is looking at the man beneath the armor, and he knows it. Mr. Marston, she begins, voice calm. We have established what you did. We understand the impact it had. But now, we must understand why. Evan's chest rises shallowly. His gaze flickers to the plaintiff, then away just as quickly. Judy leans in, not aggressively, but with the quiet authority of someone who refuses to look away from the truth. So let me ask you the question your assistant hinted at, the question your behavior points to, the question this court deserves an honest answer to. She pauses, letting the silence sharpen the moment. How did you make your first million? The gallery stills. Even the air feels different, heavier, as if the question itself pulled gravity tighter around him. Evan's lips part slightly. He looks almost startled, as though expecting something else, something easier, something he had already prepared an answer for. Judy continues, Your assistant suggested your business practices didn't suddenly appear. They were taught, learned, refined. So tell this court, how did it begin? Evan's jaw flexes, his fingers twitch. He attempts to stand tall, but the truth weighs him down, bending him, grounding him. Finally, he exhales. I undercut people, he says, voice hollow. Small contractors, independent builders, people who needed the work more than I needed to pay them fairly. The plaintiff's eyes close, not out of anger this time, but in painful recognition. Evan continues, barely audible. I'd offer them big projects, then slash the payments. Tell them it was good exposure. Tell them they'd thank me later. Most did. They didn't want to lose the opportunity. And you saw that as what? Judy asks. Business strategy? He nods without pride, without strength. Yes. Back then, I did. And now? She asks. His throat tightens. He has no script for this part, no charm, no wealth polished enough to coat the truth. Now I see it was exploitation, he says quietly. I built my success on people who couldn't afford to fight back. The plaintiff looks at him, not victorious, but wounded by the honesty. Judge Judy leans back. And your pattern with this plaintiff was not an exception, it was a continuation. He doesn't argue, he doesn't deny, he simply nods, slow, defeated, seen. This, Judy says, is why accountability matters, because arrogance becomes habit, and habit becomes harm. Evan lowers his eyes. For the first time, he looks genuinely remorseful, perhaps not for what he did, but for finally understanding the depth of it. She straightens her spine, signaling the approach of judgment. We are nearly at the end, Mr. Marston. What comes next will reflect not your wealth, but your choices. And now, she says, reaching for her pen, the court will hear its final verdict. Before you hear the verdict, ask yourself, can people truly change, or do they just learn to hide who they are? The courtroom is silent, not the fragile silence of fear or tension. This is the silence of truth settling into place, heavy and immovable. Evan Marston stands alone in it, stripped of the armor he once believed was impenetrable. Judge Judy lifts her pen. The simple motion draws every eye, every breath, every heartbeat into its orbit. Her expression is no longer sharp with interrogation, nor soft with reflection. It is something steadier, something final. Mr. Marston, she begins, you came into this courtroom believing money solves everything. The words land with a quiet force, each one a deliberate strike at the foundation of the persona he built. You believed influence insulates you. You believed vulnerability is weakness. You believed the people who work hard for you were expendable. She glances toward the plaintiff, and her voice deepens. But this courtroom does not operate on wealth. It operates on truth. Evan lowers his eyes. There is no fight left, no swagger, no performance. Only a man listening to what he has spent years avoiding. Judy continues, her tone steady as a gavel. You withheld payment intentionally. You leveraged fear as a business tactic. You exploited someone whose only mistake was trusting you. The plaintiff's breath catches, not because he doubts her words, but because hearing them aloud, validated, affirmed, undoes months of invisible wounds. For that, Judy says, you will pay full restitution to the plaintiff. She writes the number clearly, decisively, and on top of that, punitive damages. Evan flinches at the amount not because he cannot afford it, but because he has never before been forced to confront the consequences of his choices in terms he cannot negotiate away. You will also cover all court fees, she adds, and this judgment will reflect your pattern of behavior, not just this incident. Let it follow you into every business dealing until you decide to rebuild your life with integrity instead of intimidation. She looks up again, and her voice softens, but the softness carries more power than any rebuke. Mr. Marston, success is not measured by what you take from others. It's measured by what you give, what you honor, what you uphold. He closes his eyes. A flicker of something crosses his face, regret, perhaps, or the first fragile thread of recognition. She turns to the plaintiff. You, she says, did nothing wrong. You showed courage in the face of manipulation. And today, the court returns to you not just the money owed, but the dignity taken. The plaintiff nods, eyes wet, but this time with relief. Judge Judy lifts her gavel. And let this serve as a reminder, she says, voice resonant, that arrogance collapses under truth, money fails where character is absent, and power without responsibility becomes its own downfall. The gavel strikes, sharp, final. Evan's shoulders fall. Not in defeat. Defeat implies a battle lost. This is something deeper. The quiet realization that the world he built on leverage and fear cannot survive in a room where truth is the only currency. The plaintiff exhales, finally unburdened. The courtroom begins to stir, but for a moment, one long, still moment, everything stands suspended. Justice has spoken, and it did not speak in numbers. It spoke in truth. Wealth finally meets truth, and truth does not blink. Judy lifts one more document from the envelope. Your assistant also included this, a signed statement from someone you did not expect to ever speak against you. He does not touch the envelope. He does not even reach for it. The hesitation is small, but small moments are where truth first shows its teeth. Judge Judy taps the thicker document resting on the bench. Unlike the emails, this one is heavier, figuratively and literally, a statement, a signature, a witness he never expected to speak. Mr. Marston, she says, would you like to open it? He stands perfectly still, but stillness can be its own confession. His throat moves once, betraying the swallow he tries to hide. I do not see the relevance, he says quietly. That, Judy replies, is why it is relevant. The bailiff retrieves the document and hands it to Evan, who accepts it like it might burn him. He stares at the folded pages for a long, brittle second before peeling them open. His eyes skim the first few lines, and something inside him collapses. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough that the courtroom feels the shift, the way an audience feels the villain realizing the plot has outpaced him. Judge Judy watches his expression, reading him like a confession. What does it say? She asks. He does not answer. Read it aloud, Mr. Marston. His jaw tightens. This is taken out of context. Read it aloud. The room holds its breath. Finally, he begins. My name is Danielle Pierce. I served as Mr. Marston's executive assistant for 7 years. During that time, I witnessed repeated patterns of unethical behavior. He stops, voice faltering. Continue, Judy says softly. Including deliberate withholding of payment from small contractors, intentional delays to force discounts, and repeated threats implying that those who challenged him would lose future business opportunities. Gasps scatter through the gallery like sparks. Evan's hands tremble slightly. He tries to hide them by lowering the paper, but nothing hides in Judy's courtroom. The plaintiff's face changes. Not triumph, but relief mixed with heartbreak. He was not the only one. He was never the only one. Judy nods toward the document. Go on. He hesitates. She waits. He swallows and reads the final line. I am submitting this statement because Mr. Marston believes money protects him from consequences. I have watched too many people suffer under that belief. I cannot be silent anymore. The words hit the courtroom harder than any recording. For the first time all day, Evan looks small. A man unaccustomed to being outnumbered now finds himself outmaneuvered by his own past. Judy leans forward. Where were you the day she wrote this? He freezes. His pupils flicker left, calculating, searching for a lie strong enough to stand. But no lie forms. None could. You were not at your office, Judy continues. You were meeting with another contractor, one whose invoice you also disputed. His chest tightens. You do not know that. I do, she replies. Because your assistant sent me your calendar entries too. The courtroom stills. A man who once believed he controlled every room now stands exposed in one he cannot influence. Judy folds her hands. So tell me, Mr. Marston, how many people have you done this to? Do you think remorse should ever erase guilt? Or does justice demand accountability no matter what? His jaw tightens, his breathing shifts, and just like that, the millionaire who entered this courtroom certain of victory realizes he is now fighting for something else entirely, the last scraps of his image. Judge Judy lifts the stack of financial disclosures again, turning a page slowly, as though every sheet carries the weight of someone he wronged. Evan stands rigid at the podium, trying to reclaim a posture of control, but control is no longer listening to him. It has chosen a new master. Mr. Marston, Judy says, your calendar entries place you at a private meeting on the same day your assistant wrote her statement. Who were you meeting? He inhales, steadying himself. A potential partner. No, Judy replies, sliding a receipt across the bench. You were meeting a contractor, one whose invoice you disputed 2 years ago. A hush falls over the courtroom. Evan stares at the receipt. Time stamped, location marked, signature captured unmistakably. His throat moves in a hard swallow. He opens his mouth, but whatever defense he hoped to summon dissolves before reaching the air. You lied about that meeting, Judy says. Why? He grips the podium until the wood creaks. I forgot about it. You forgot, she echoes, voice soft but dangerous. You forgot the meeting, the invoice, the conflict, and the pattern. Convenient. His composure fractures again. The cracks deepen. The plaintiff watches with quiet intensity. The pain is still there, but so is vindication, not triumph. Vindication, the kind that does not celebrate, but finally breathes. Judy continues. Your assistant wrote her statement after that meeting, after watching you do the same thing to someone else. That was the moment she decided to speak. Evan shakes his head. She misunderstood. That contractor was incompetent. They all were. The entire gallery recoils at the plural. They. The admission that his behavior was not a one-time misjudgment, but a system, a method, a habit. Judy leans forward. And how many of those incompetent people were small contractors? How many trusted you? How many feared you? His eyes dart to the clerk, the bailiff, the plaintiff, anywhere but her. Your Honor, you are twisting this, he insists, voice cracking on the final syllable. I never meant to harm anyone. Intention does not erase impact, she replies quietly. Nor does money. The words hit him harder than the evidence. A deep silence settles, heavy, honest, unavoidable. The plaintiff clears his throat, softly, timidly, as if asking permission to exist again. My life almost collapsed because of him, he says. I stopped sleeping. I stopped trusting clients. I stopped believing my work mattered. One meeting, one threat, and everything I built felt like it could disappear overnight. Evan closes his eyes. It is the first moment he looks less like a millionaire and more like a man finally hearing the echo of his own actions. Judge Judy does not look away. Mr. Marston, she says, voice low. There is something else your assistant sent, something I believe you should explain. His eyes snap open, fear flooding the cracks, arrogance once filled. She lifts a second envelope. This one concerns the real reason you withheld payment from this plaintiff. When she reaches into the second envelope, something in Evan's posture changes. Not a shift, but a collapse disguised as stillness. He knows what's coming before anyone else does. Judge Judy opens the envelope with the same calm precision she's used all morning, but this time the courtroom feels it. An invisible tightening, a slow inhale of tension that pulls every eye toward her hands. Evan watches like a man waiting for a verdict he already fears. This, she says, sliding out a single glossy photograph, was included with your assistant's second submission. She holds it up. The camera focuses on it, Evan Marston shaking hands with a contractor outside a dimly lit restaurant. But that's not the problem. The problem is the date. The problem is the timestamp. The problem is that Evan testified under oath he had never met this contractor before. A shockwave rolls through the room. Evan's face drains of color, then flushes deep red, as if the lie is forcing itself out through his skin. That means nothing, he snaps. It was a casual meeting. You claimed, Judy cuts in, her voice a razor wrapped in velvet, that you had never met him, ever. He swallows. I misspoke. No, her gaze sharpens. You lied. The plaintiff watches with widening eyes, realizing the truth is far bigger than just his case. He isn't witnessing a simple breach of contract. He is watching the architecture of a man's manipulation begin to crumble piece by piece. Judy lays the photograph down gently, almost tenderly, the way one places the final tile in a mosaic. There's more, she says. She lifts a printed email, one the assistant forwarded separately, highlighted in a glowing stripe of yellow. She doesn't read it aloud at first. She lets the weight of the moment bend the room. Then, this email, she says, describes your plan to delay payment deliberately, to force this plaintiff into a financial corner so he would accept a lower rate. Evan tries to speak, but the words choke out as little more than breath. No, that was a draft. Not something I intended. Intent, Judy murmurs, is irrelevant when the action follows the pattern. She looks at the plaintiff, then back at Evan. You didn't withhold payment because of workmanship. You withheld it because you believed he was vulnerable, because you assumed he had no power to fight back. The room is silent enough to hear the plaintiff's quiet inhale. And that, she adds, is the real reason we are here. Evan's shoulders slump, his hands fall to his sides, his eyes drop to the floor, not out of shame, but because he finally has nowhere left to look that does not reflect his own wrongdoing. Judge Judy's voice lowers, not harsh, not cold, but resonant with something deeper, something earned. Mr. Marston, this is not just about money. This is about who you are when you think no one can stop you. The words strike harder than any fine she could impose. Evan closes his eyes. It is the first honest thing he's done all day. Judy leans back, studying him. Before I render judgment, I need to know something. Why did you target him specifically? His shoulders drop, not dramatically, not theatrically, but with the slow, inward fold of a man finally realizing the room no longer bends to him. Power leaks out of him like air from a punctured tire. Judge Judy's question hangs in the charged stillness. Why did you target him specifically? Evan does not answer immediately. He stares at the grain of the podium as if the truth might be hidden inside the wood. The courtroom waits, breath held, suspended in the fragile quiet between exposure and consequence. His lips part, but nothing comes out. Only an exhale that sounds more like surrender than explanation. Judy doesn't push, she simply watches, because silence often speaks louder than denial, and this silence speaks volumes. At last Evan murmurs, "He was convenient." The plaintiff's face softens into something like heartbreak, not shock, because deep down he always feared this truth, but heartbreak at hearing it, confirmed by the man who turned his life inside out.